Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex, coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of... So, Halloween is 1 week closer, and as the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting cooler, I am snuggling down into spooky season and enjoying everything that October has to offer. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video, the jack-o'-lantern from the last 2 years that I normally have sitting beside me has gone to the great pumpkin patch in the sky. So I'm having Carrie carve a new jack-o'-lantern every episode. And if you remember the jack-o'-lantern from last weekend, that poor thing is off somewhere probably getting pregnant or catching a disease or something. So we're just gonna try not to think about that one. But Carrie has carved a new jack-o'-lantern for this weekend, and I'm hoping it's something that's more in tune with the season because I have yet to see it.
You ready?
As ready as I'm ever gonna be. Really?
Really?
Really, Carrie?
Really?
I'm gonna hold it together. What the hell is wrong with you? Well, it seems this is going to be the first episode where I'm censored throughout, because what's behind the jack-o'-lantern emoji is exactly what you think it is. That's right, boys and girls, it is a flaming dickhead, but we are going to ignore that. We are going to ignore it and pretend that this is a scary jack-o'-lantern and go on about our merry little way. Now, this weekend, I reviewed the novelization of Halloween by Curtis Richards. And until last year, the print copy of this had been out of print, but now it's available in ebook, which I've wanted to read this for a very long time, but print copies were going for $300 to $1,000 a pop. And now that I've actually read this, I can honestly say that I wouldn't spend no more than $20 on the original print copy. But since that's never going to happen, I believe that the $10 ebook is very reasonable. Also, I would like to add that I buddy read this with two of my good online friends named Gina and Blake, which I had a really great time reading this with them, especially as we were comparing the book and movie and as we were discussing the characters. So if either of you are watching, I would just like to say thank you for reading this with me, and I hope you enjoy the review. Now, without me rambling on anymore, let's head up to Haddonfield and see what made Michael Myers the monster that he is. Halloween by Curtis Richards opens up over 1,000 years ago, and it introduces Enda, who is a disfigured young man in love with a beautiful girl named Deirdre. However, when she doesn't reciprocate his love, he's driven mad with jealousy, and he murders her and her betrothed on Samhain night. Then, after he's committed this crime, Deirdre's father, who is a druid king, places a curse on Enda for him to wander the world for all of eternity, lusting after blood. From here, we fast forward to Haddonfield, Illinois in the 1960s, where little Michael Myers is hearing voices telling him to kill his sister Judith. Then, after he kills her, he's committed to the asylum known as Smith's Grove, where he's placed under the care of Dr. Loomis. Then, as time passes, Loomis sees that Michael is not fit to be among society, so he keeps the boy institutionalized. Yet 15 years later, on one dark, rainy Halloween Eve, Michael escapes, and even though Dr. Loomis is on his trail, this doesn't stop Michael from giving Haddonfield a Halloween that they'll never forget. With a budget of $300,000 to $325,000, Halloween grossed $60 to $70 million from its premiere in 1978. Since Halloween's release, there have been numerous sequels, a remake of Part 1 and 2, and 2 reboots. And throughout Halloween's cinematic success, Michael Myers gained his own comic book series, a video game, a never-ending line of merch, and novelizations. In 1979, the novelization of Halloween was released by Curtis Richards, which this is the pseudonym for New York literary agent Richard Curtis. And from 1981 to 1992, Curtis had a regular column called Agent's Corner in the sci-fi fanzine known as Locus. And in 1999, he created the ebook website ereads.com. Until 2020, the novelization of Halloween had been out of print since the 1980s. Fun facts. Thanks to Gina, here's a few things that I learned about novelizations. Most understand that when a book is released, it can later inspire a movie adaptation. However, with a novelization, the movie comes first, then the book follows. In a column for Lit Reactor, Christopher Schultz explained that novelizations are mostly written within a 4 to 6 week time span after the movie is completed. And instead of the novelization being a labor of love, the author is commissioned to transcribe what occurred on screen for readers. Peter Coble added that novelizations had their heyday in the 1970s, which was prior to the existence of VCRs. And since at that time the only way to see a movie was either in the theater or if it came on TV, the novelization existed so moviegoers could relive the movie whenever they wished. Then, after video rentals became popular, the novelization still had its purpose for fans, because if someone wanted to purchase a VHS of one of their favorite movies, one VHS could cost them anywhere from $30 to $100. But eventually, in the 90s, after the price for VHS decreased, novelizations weren't as sought after as what they once were. However, they do still exist. Now that we have that covered, it's time to move on to the spoilers section, which, if you haven't read this before, I'm about to reveal some things that could ruin the experience for you. So if you would like to skip this section, all you have to do is go to the comments and you'll see that I have a pinned comment at the top. Once you click on the timestamp that I have provided inside of that comment, it will direct you away from the spoilers and bring you to the thoughts section. Now, you only have 17 seconds to do this, so ready, set, go! Since everyone's had the opportunity to click away, I would like to talk about a few of my favorite moments. To start with, I was really impressed with the backstory that we received regarding Michael's stay at Smith's Grove. Now, during this time, it had noted that Dr. Loomis was taken by Michael's angelic appearance. However, when the two locked eyes, there was something about Michael that chilled Loomis's blood. And even though Michael had this whole angelic thing going on except for his eyes, there was nothing but a string of supposed accidents that surrounded his stay. Like, we had a nurse who fell down the stairs, an orderly got food poisoning, a child ended up having scalding water mysteriously get dumped on him, and the list continues. Now, what really impressed me with this was it added a level of character to Michael, and it made me wonder that if he had remained among society, if he would have used his angelic appearance to fool people into thinking he was innocent and to lure in more victims. And this also made me consider, well, this is probably what would have happened if little Rhoda from the bad seed never would have had the shit zapped out of her. The next moment I enjoyed was when Lori found Linda, Annie, and Bob. Now, at this point, Lori had been trying to get someone to answer the phone over at the Wallace's house, but when no one answers her call, she decides to go over there and see what's up. Which, this is when she discovers Annie has been disemboweled, Bob has been strung up from the ceiling with his guts hanging out, and Linda had been strangled to death. So I really appreciated this moment because the description felt way more intense than what we saw in the movie. Now, don't get me wrong, I still feel like the reveal in the movie is one of the best reveals in the slasher subgenre, but due to the author's choice of word, it really showed us how brutal Michael was versus seeing it on screen. The next moment that I enjoyed was Laurie's retaliation sequence. Now, leading up to this, Laurie had been confronted by Michael on the second floor after she had found the dead bodies. And since he was blocking her means of escape by going down the stairs, she crawls over the banister and drops down to ground level, which is like 8 to 10 feet below her. But despite this move causing her to get an injured ankle, she's still able to haul ass and hobble over to the Doyles before Michael can attack. Then no sooner does she tell the kids to hide, Michael busts up in there and she grabs a knitting needle where she stabs him in the neck. But after she thinks he's dead, he attacks her again, which leads to the infamous closet scene where she stabs him in the eyeball with a clothes hanger. But in the book, after he drops his knife, she picks that mug up and stabs him in the crotch. Well, once she thinks that Michael is dead, she tells the kids to get while the getting's good, which, of course, they do what she says. However, she stays behind to make sure Michael is actually dead. So, I'm fairly certain what I'm about to say is going to piss off some purists, but I really enjoyed the ending of the book more than I did the movie. Which, the movie and book, they pretty much have the same ending, except with how it plays out in the book, the action feels like it's quite a bit more intense. Also, I was able to gain some insight into Laurie's thought process, like we see how she's debating if she could actually kill Michael if he's in a defenseless state despite what he had done. So I really appreciated that because it allowed us to see her level of sympathy and humanity, even towards a homicidal maniac. I would like to use this opportunity to bitch about Dr. Wynn, even though all he had was like about 3 paragraphs of page time throughout the entire book. Now, this son of a bitch is exactly what's wrong with society, because while a psychopath has escaped his asylum by driving away in a station wagon, Dr. Wynn has the audacity to pop his thumb up his ass and say, "But Michael doesn't know how to drive," even though this bitch burnt rubber like 24 hours ago. Then, when Dr. Loomis wants him to make a public service announcement about how some homicidal maniac has escaped their asylum, Dr. Wynn doesn't want to do this because it'll look bad for the asylum. Now, in my opinion, I honestly believe that if Dr. Wynn ended up getting with that shitty-ass mayor from Jaws, the two of them would have a grand old time sniffing each other's ass. Halloween by Curtis Richards was a pulpish novelization that presented a decent origin story as well as character development. Also, as far as themes are concerned, I felt like this was a coming-of-age story that focused on fate and the will to live. Character-wise, Dr. Loomis didn't bring anything new to the table. However, even though some of her thoughts were repetitive, Laurie was very fascinating, especially since she had a morbid curiosity. Also, I really liked that added touch to her humanity when she was conflicted about killing Michael if he was in a defenseless state. Aside from them, I found it interesting that some of Michael's murders caused him to become sexually aroused. Now, at first, Blake and I agreed that this really didn't add anything to Michael's character and we felt like it was unnecessary. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense that he would be sexually aroused, considering that the murders at the beginning of the book were done out of a crime of passion. So perhaps this is alluding to how the past is connected to the present. Theme-wise, I can't help but feel like everything that happens in Halloween is centered around fate. And the reason I say this is because there's a scene where Laurie's literature teacher is lecturing to the class about a book that they're reading. And it's in this book that we see where one of the characters is a personification of fate and another character is destined to meet with fate. which it's during this time that Lori looks out of her classroom window and sees Michael Myers watching her from his station wagon. And as they lock eyes, her teacher does everything within her power to stress that you can't change fate. Now, I imagine this probably means something different to everyone, but to me, it feels like everything we're about to experience is Lori's fate, and due to this, she is about to mentally transform. As far as coming of age is concerned, I really feel like Lori went through a major transformation, because for the most part of this book, she comes across as being naive and somewhat innocent. Then, after Michael puts her through all of his shit, it's like her rose-tinted glasses fall off and she sees the world for what it really is. Also, symbolically, I had always considered the closet that Lori had hidden inside was a symbol for the womb. And after she left the closet, she had completed her transformation. Which, in the book, after she leaves the closet, she practically faces Michael head on and says, "Bring it." I recently read The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, and after I did some research, I discovered the final girl represented a transformative symbol. Also, Hendrix had philosophized that the final girl doesn't survive because she's the smartest or the strongest, but she survives because of her will to live. And as Gina and I discussed this, we saw that the philosophy Hendrix had was true for Lori, because not every move she made was a smart move. However, she did whatever she needed to in order to survive. So, perhaps above all else, the way to survive a slasher is to have the will to live. Overall, the Halloween novelization didn't scare me, creep me out, or gross me out. But I am glad that I read it to gain an origin story on Michael Myers. Now, with that said, the origin doesn't make him any more frightening, but it does explain why he's a force to be reckoned with. Halloween by Curtis Richards was a fun read. However, had it not been for the movie, I doubt the novelization would be as sought after. And since it seemed like the book didn't provide anything groundbreaking for the Halloween fandom, I honestly feel like this book is decent and nothing more. But if you're interested in Laurie's thought process or the origin story behind Michael Myers, then I do recommend this book. On to the questions. What is a horror movie novelization that you would recommend? Also, since Halloween has received some reboots as well as a remake, what is the Halloween storyline that you prefer? Now, to help you out, here's a diagram for you to look at. Personally, I think the Michael Myers storyline should have ended after Part 2 in 1981, which this is mostly because I actually liked Season of the Witch, and I would have loved to have seen the Halloween franchise continue as an anthology series. Now, having said that, I do still enjoy and appreciate most of the Halloween movies, although I'm not a huge fan of The Curse of Michael Myers or Halloween Resurrection. Also, I'll probably lose brownie points for saying this, but I'm actually a huge fan of the Rob Zombie Halloween remake and its sequel. Well, now it's time for me to brag about some of the goodies that I receive from my viewers. And first up is this really awesome advent calendar for October that was handmade by my good online friend Lisa. And when I received this, I was completely surprised because I love advent calendars. I love the whole idea of opening up the doors and seeing what's behind them. And more times than not, I have to stop myself from opening up every door at once just to see what lays beyond that. So it really takes a lot of willpower on my behalf just to be patient and let every day be a goodie. But if you would like to check out some of Lisa's work, she does have an Etsy page available, so I'll include that link in the description section of this episode. Alright, this one's a little heavy, but I received this really kick-ass Pinhead Bust from my good online friend Blake Kelly, and this was just something that I was blown away by. I had no idea this was coming for me, but I absolutely love it. And this had belonged to his brother who had passed away, so it's totally something that I will take care of and cherish for a very, very long time. Also, I received these really cool handmade pillows from my good friend Tiny. And I was just really blown away by this because I wasn't expecting them. And I love the Omen movies. I still haven't read the books, but hopefully that'll change next year. And Tiny does a lot of crafty things like what you see here, so I'll include a link to her contact information in the description section of this episode in case you want something made for you like this. And last, I received this really cool little Halloween bundle from my good online friend Chris, also known as Chris Rooftop, which to start with, he sent all of these really cool stickers. And of course, these stickers are going to go on my book rack, even though my book rack is completely flooded with books at the moment, and there is not even a single space left on it, not even for a small little novella of a paperback. But you know what? I don't care. I'm going to keep loading that sucker up, and I will read them when I read them. But yeah, I love all of these stickers. They are just a lot of fun. And another thing that he sent me that I absolutely love is a vintage paperback called Water Baby by Patricia Wallace. Now, I've never read Wallace before, but I've wanted to, so I'm really happy to have this, especially with it having the original cover art. So yeah, I'm just absolutely totally in love with this. And he also sent me this really cool candle called Obituaries. This fragrance in particular is called Epitaph. And oh my god, it smells so good. So yeah, that is totally going to get burned. Also, he made me this handmade voodoo doll. And with it in the vial, that's like an actual coffin nail and a wishbone. I don't know if you can see that. But in the back, there's also some crystals in here. And I just love the creativity and the craft that went into this. It's just something that I will always cherish. It's just so flippin' cool. Also, he sent me these little book corner deals. Like, what you do is you put these on the corners of your hardback books, and it gives it like this really fancy look and everything. So, yeah. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna look all fancy and shit. So, yeah, those are gonna get used. And let's see. He also sent me some Samhain oil as well as Samhain incense, which I'm gonna use these on Halloween. And oh, they smell absolutely heavenly. So, yes, this is so awesome. Thank you so, so, so very much, Chris. Well, now that it's time to close out the video, I would like to give a shout out to these amazing people who contributed to my Patreon account. Here's a list of my Patreon contributors, and as you can see, some of them are creators, so be sure to check out their work. And if you would like to contribute to my Patreon account, just go to the description section of this episode and you'll see that I have a link for my Patreon available, which for $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out like what you see here. And if there's a certain profession you would like for me to tie to your name, just let me know. Also, I do have a $10 tier available where you'll still receive this shout out, but I do creepy photography on the side. And at the beginning of every month, I'll send you over one of my creepy photos. And once you receive that, you can print it off, do whatever you like. So if you're able to do this, that's awesome. If not, no sweat. I just hope you return to this channel so we can have a good time together. Also, if you would like to hit me up on social media, links to my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are all in the description section of this episode. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, be sure to subscribe and click that notifications bell because I have more book reviews coming in the near future. So until we see each other again, I hope you have a great week and sweet nightmares.